Hello again. Welcome to another episode of Leading from Alignment with our good friend, John Opalewski, and as promised last week, our returning guest, Dave Barringer. John, how you doing today?
Hey Jim, I'm well, and I'm really excited about episode 222. We have our good
Yeah.
friend Dave Barringer back with us. So Jim,
Yeah.
let's just jump right in, man.
Do it, man.
You've got the first one question, I believe.
No, it's you. You're the
Oh,
even.
it's
Remember?
me. Oh,
I'm
that's
I'm
right, it
I'm
is me.
odd. That's why I remember. I'm the odd guy.
Okay, so here we go. We now that we got that settled, um, Dave, your book, the name of your book again. Give that to us. This book that it has just come out a few months ago. It is Speaking from the Shadows. Is that correct?
That's
Yes.
correct. Absolutely.
Yeah. And in chapter one of your book, you said this that depression wants to command every fiber of your being. And I obviously I underlined that as I was reading the book. Can you unpack that thought for us? What does that mean? It wants to command every fiber of your being.
Yeah, depression isn't like I'm stuffed up. Like I've got something and my nose is only affected or my voice is affected. Where depression wants it's a computer virus, so to speak, that wants to control the entirety of the system.
Okay.
Inputs, outputs, everything. Um, People who go through depression and it can have various levels from seasonal depression to momentary to
Yeah.
clinical. But depression, it wants to sideline you completely to the point where you're hungry, but you don't have the strength to eat. You're tired, but you want to be awake. That I know I
Mm.
need to do something, but I can't physically move myself. It wants to affect your mentality, the way that you're feeling, what your emotions are telling you, what your gut is doing, everything about you. It just wants to command the whole computer itself. And so
Yeah.
that's how I've used that's kind of the metaphor I've used to describe what depression does.
Yeah. I look at it this way that depression is a whole person
Mm.
issue.
Yeah,
It affects you. There's a physical piece to it. There is obviously a mental and emotional piece to it. There is a relational piece to it. There's many, many times for leaders, there's a schedule piece
absolutely.
to it. And so, yeah, it's this whole person problem. It needs to be dealt with in the light of it being a whole person problem. And it has this uncanny capacity. And I love to hear your comment on this one, Dave. It has this capacity to color everything. I used to say this that when I was at the bottom of that pit, it could be sunny outside, and I'd look out the window and it looked gray
Mm, yeah,
to me.
yeah.
Can you comment on that piece real quick?
It was about 4 years ago, 3 years ago. I was at a mini conference at Grand Rapids First Assembly, and it was lunchtime. And I remember texting my wife, "I'm so alone right now. I have never felt so alone." And so she calls me immediately. "What's going on? Why did you leave the conference?" I said, "No, I'm here." She goes, "Where are you at right now?" I said, "I'm at a table." She goes, "Are you by yourself?" I said, "I'm shoulder to shoulder. I'm trying to talk quiet." And she goes, "So you're not actually alone?" And I said, "No, I am alone, but you're not alone." But it's this a little bit of a back and
Wow.
forthness
Yeah.
where depression, you can be in the middle of the big house, 112,000 people, and feel like everybody is sitting in the sunshine and they feel the touchdown, but you're sitting there and there's a ray of darkness, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
on you. And you're staring and you're asking, why is it that I can't feel the touchdown like they feel and see what they're seeing and experience what they're experiencing? It is this isolation feeling where it commands the fiber mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. Everything is affected all at once, which I agree, John. We have to have that full body, that full range response. Depression is more than just taking a medication or just taking a
Yep.
day off or a mental health day. We've got to attack it from every aspect. Why? Because that's how it hits us.
Yeah.
Can I just interject something here, guys? I It's funny. I burned out years ago and felt very blue for a very long time. I would say that I felt numb. I couldn't feel
Mm,
anything good.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
couldn't feel anything bad. But what you're describing is a whole different level, really. I could watch a Hallmark film and feel something. You're describing like there's no I had to connect to something that wasn't real to feel it because everything real was too heavy. So
Yeah.
describing this, it's almost like I'm colorblind. to some degree to what you're saying. You're describing something I've never sensed. For those that are sitting on my side of this issue, could you use more words? Like, how would I know? You know, Dave, you're at a table, everybody's talking, hanging out, laughing. Did they have any idea anything was wrong? And
No, honestly, let's. I can be hard on pastors sometimes
yeah,
because when we're at conferences, we're not really worried about anybody else.
right,
We're talking about us, the size of our churches, the things that we're doing, the things that we're
yeah,
operating in. And
yeah,
so quite frankly, that's an easy spot to hide. It really
yeah,
is. And just happened to be one of those days where I didn't sit with who I would normally sit with. Um, I didn't have any of my staff with me whatsoever.
mm-hmm.
And part of that, to be honest, was how I was already cooking before I went in.
Right,
Like a
right,
grenade was cooking
yeah,
before it's being thrown. That was me going into it. And so therefore I avoided people because I didn't want to ruin anybody's day. And
right,
so there's almost this mentality that goes into those moments, and we automatically isolate ourselves. We pull ourselves back, not realizing we're actually harming ourselves even more
right,
so, and not even positioning
right,
ourselves to come out of it. And
Yeah.
that all makes sense right now. But
right,
when you're in the middle of it, what actually
right,
makes sense is let's not spread what I have. Let's not
mm-hmm.
darken anybody else's day. Let's not ruin anybody else's moments. And and I almost used the metaphor of being colorblind. Actually, I was on TikTok last night watching. I like to cry when I watch TikTok, so I watch servicemen come home. But I was watching these people
Yeah,
who are colorblind getting specific glasses that allowed them to see color for the first time,
right,
and that's prior to it is like being colorblind.
yeah,
You don't
Yeah.
colors aren't bright.
right,
Sound isn't vibrant. The
huh,
feels that you would get. I think it was. I remember football season last year. My kids came over, were hanging out, and they knew something was wrong when Dad goes to bed at halftime.
right,
And Dad had not said a word. It's like I'm watching one of the things that brings me joy. I love
right,
football, and
right,
it was lifeless. My kids
mm,
coming over bring me joy. That was lifeless, and it wasn't anything they were doing. It wasn't a bad game.
right,
It's just that I was lifeless in the moment.
right,
And I think, and Jim, to give a little more language to it
yeah,
real quickly, with depression, 1+1 doesn't equal 2.
okay,
You know, everything can be going great
Yeah,
outside,
yeah,
actually.
right,
When I
right,
was when I crashed into the wall of depression, the church I was pastoring was having its best year ever.
yeah,
right,
I'm married to Laura, and you both know Laura, and
yeah,
she's a gem. She's beautiful. I've got 4 little guys that are
yeah,
amazing. Live in a house with a pool. I mean, it just everything was good.
yeah,
Um, my life on the outside looked like steak, filet
yeah,
mignon, and on the inside it was liver and onions, man. It was,
right,
and so that's the reality of it is people would look at the outside and say, what do you have to be depressed about?
right,
You have so many good things in your life, and that's true. And yet I have this darkness that's wanting to kill me happening at the same time. And so that's what I mean. 1+1 doesn't
yeah.
equal 2.
It's
And
funny.
I don't know if that's helpful to you
Well,
or not, but
if 3 out of 10 people were anorexic, you can see that.
right.
What I'm hearing you say though is not only is it difficult for someone who's not depressed, who's never suffered from depression, to find it, to see it, but there's actually there's a hiding of it that becomes normative as well. So
Can
let's go
be.
back.
Yeah.
Let's go back to that table, Dave. You're in Grand Rapids, and I'm sitting at the table with you. How would I know? In other words, are we to turn our circles outwards and look for 3 out of 10 people, and ministers 4 out of 10 people that are wrestling with this? How would I know that anybody at that table was dealing with it? Is there anything from your perspective that would be a clue to you or to me that would help you to discern somebody's really wrestling with something at this table right now?
Well, I think looking back, I can picture myself there. I just can't picture the faces. But if you're not in the mode of noticing people
Yeah,
and as you're interacting with individuals, you're just going to breeze right by it because those of us
right,
that deal with it, we almost treat it like we are there's an infection and we don't want to spread it. And so we will guard it. We will guard ourselves. We will blend in as best as we can. Because quite frankly, we don't want the attention, but we want the attention. We want attention.
That's crazy.
But yet we don't want to draw it. Let somebody be fully present. And so for me, I think looking back, it was almost a self-sabotage. I didn't want to ruin my friend's day, so I didn't go sit near anybody. But at the same time, they would have recognized Dave isn't Dave. And being around people, and that's where as ministers, we need community. We need really good community, because the more that we get to know people, they get to know us. They can also recognize something's not clicking.
Right.
Dave is not fully present. Dave isn't fully here. I'm thankful for friends who will, I remember being on the phone with one of my best friends, and he's like, something's wrong. I said, what? He said, the tone of your voice, the way you're describing this, something's wrong. What's going on? And so to me, that's where one of the best things that we can do as ministers is to learn how to be vulnerable in community, develop community, so that when we're in those situations that we can, instead of in front of anybody, I'd pull somebody aside and say, how you doing? Something seems off. Something seems wrong. But without that, it's just easy to hide. I mean, look at Elijah calls down fire, deals with the prophets of Baal, and then the next day Jezebel writes a blog about him, and he's hiding in a cave asking God to kill him. And so you can have everything can go right, and you just want to write to Elijah and say, do you not just see what you've accomplished? But depression doesn't care, and it will leverage it all against you. Because instead of saying, hey, look at what you've done, it's like, look at what you used to do. And you can't even pull yourself out. And so to me, recognizing it, it helps to be in relationship, because without that, it's really hard. It's really hard to recognize it.
Speaking of relationship, you said in your book in chapter 7, it says, when you're dealing with depression and you find something or someone life-giving, you latch on and you don't want to let go.
Yeah.
Can you give more language to that? What do you mean when you write that?
I mean a couple things from like for me, activities. I rock climb 4 times a week because it's life-giving. It's absolute life-giving. I climbed yesterday. It's actually become my mission field. I've got people from the climbing gym coming to Christmas candlelight. There's just something about having something to do that helps to decompress the body, the mind, the soul. And rock climbing does that for me. For other people, they'll find their things. But to me, it's having something that gives me life, to having a pace and a schedule that gives life. Because you can be doing a lot of good things, but if you don't get your pace and your schedule, your rhythms of your life, you can do a lot of good things, and those good things can all choke you because there's nothing life-giving. There's no place to get a breath. You have to find relationships. I hit community hard throughout the book. And I've got individuals that I know I can call at the drop of a hat and contact them, and they'll not just understand me, they'll pray for me, and they will check in on me. But a lot of pastors, we just don't do that, and they're not in my congregation. I've got my relationship with my wife. I have to make sure that my marriage is always in a good place, because I want my marriage to be life-giving. The way that I develop relationship with my kids, I want that. I want to look and to make sure that I'm not just giving life, but I've got life-giving things within me, because when those moments come in that make me want to pull back, I have to wrestle with what do I feel like and what is truth, because truth has to trump feelings. And so I go rock climbing because I know that's going to give me some life. I'm going to go out with my wife. That'll give me life.
So again, from I'm trying to learn, right? So perspective, color blindness, we talked about. Do you like if 10 is a full blown suicidal ideation, gut wrenching depression, is there a 9 and an 8? Is there a 1 that you can be sensitive to? Because you never get to 10 if you understand 1, 2, 3, right? Is that part of it?
Yeah, you can have a bit of a scale. Like, I think of when you go to a doctor's a hospital room, they have a scale of
pain,
smiley face to not so smiley. It's a pain scale. And I think we can do that because there are moments where I'm at a 1 and I will look at my wife and say, there's a disturbance in the force. I'm feeling the way that we word it around here is I'm feeling the funk. I'm feeling heavy right now. And she will say, okay, let's get you climbing. Okay, let's go for a walk,
Yeah.
exercise. Let's just talk it through. And
Yeah.
so when we see those, I'll call them lighter scale
Yeah.
things, we try to we've learned to begin to head
Right.
it off immediately. And
Right.
it and
Separate.
sometimes that pulls me out, and other
Okay.
times it's poured life into it so that as it has progressed a little bit, the progression has not been so bad
Gotcha.
because instead of just allowing it to happen and not
Yeah.
talking about it and not having mechanisms. It's now I recognize it and now let's start doing it. And that didn't
Okay.
happen until I got verbal with my wife about it and started
Mm.
talking with her about it
Yeah.
and inviting her into that moment so that when it happens in the home, we just don't sit and let it happen. We actually get proactive with it.
Love it. I think
My
you,
wife is very, she has radar for it with me too. She observes, some things that are going on in my world, and she knows, okay, you're starting to get into a spot where if you don't intervene here, you don't do some of the things you're saying you do, it won't be long before depression's tapping at your door again.
Yeah.
And so she's very sensitive to that. Dave, I really wanted to ask you this, and I know we've kind of touched on this question all throughout last podcast and today, but I really want for you to lay out for us some next steps. Let's say a leader who's listening or watching today, they're suffering from this long dark tunnel of depression. What would be 4 or 5? And by the way, if you are, um, you don't have to do all 4 or 5 of these at the same time.
right.
We don't want to add a huge load to you, but what are
Mm.
4 or 5 like really good steps, next steps for somebody who finds themselves struggling in this way?
I am fighting to not start off with prayer. Um,
Okay.
I'm fighting saying that because I think prayer is always our first response.
Okay.
And I'm fighting saying that because I can't tell you how many times I've been in depression and people would say, would you just pray more? What
Right.
I don't want to do is color it in a way that says, if you just prayed more, you wouldn't go through depression. I'm not
Right.
saying that in the least bit,
Right. Right.
but there's a reason why Eugene Peterson calls the Psalms the training ground for prayer. I utilize the Psalms to pray in those moments and to begin to get raw with God. I think we have to
Yeah.
recognize, and we talk about how real we can be with God, but I'm telling you, when you're going through depression, you feel like you can't be that real with God. You can't tell
Mm.
God, I want to end my life. You can't tell
Mm.
God that I hate my life, that I hate that, I am so inept, that I am unqualified. You don't want to admit those things as pastors because we feel like we're giving the devil the victory, or we don't want to speak into those things. But read the Psalms. There's some times of that
Yeah.
raw. Like my
Yeah.
Yeah.
favorite Psalm, it's actually tattooed on my wrist, Psalms 42 and 43. Why are you downcast, your soul?
Mm.
He's wrestling. So to me, talking with God and actually getting real with God is a big step.
Yep.
The very close number 2 is you need to tell somebody, but yet somebody that, it's to me not just anybody, somebody that could help be that Aaron and Hur on either side of Moses, people that you would trust to be real with, that can actually handle that. And
Dave, Dave, can I pitch into that real
yeah,
quick?
yeah,
I,
yeah,
I
please.
think telling somebody
There's a good
uh,
word.
who's safe and and has your back, and maybe I'm saying the same thing twice, but
Yeah, I think
somebody who's
they're
somebody who's
synonyms.
for you.
Yeah, he's somebody who is objective, that is Christ
Yeah, there you
centered,
go. I like it.
that is, and I like the word safe. And let's be real, when you're going through depression, nobody feels safe because you feel like you're not safe for them.
Hmm.
But you
Mm.
have to just battle with truth versus feelings. And you have to find community. And
Mm.
I think the best way to find community is, it's like fixing a roof. You don't fix a roof in the rain. You fix it when it's not raining.
Mm.
And I think as often as pastors, sometimes we only start searching for community when things go bad.
Mm.
But this is where we have to develop relationships and safe
Yeah.
communities so that when we are going through these wrestling times, that we have those safe, Christ-centered, objective individuals that will do more than just say it's going to be okay, but it's going to give objective insight, Christ-centered insight, and help be there to check in with you. In the book, I have pages in between the chapters called survival rules. And one of them is having a group of 3 that will check in on you, that you can call upon at any point, and they're going to check in with you and making sure that you're surviving, that you're working through that. So I think community is a massive thing, especially in ministry. The enemy works in isolation. God works in community. We have to learn how to work in community with people. I think even in that, your rhythms is something that has to be examined.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rhythm is everything. If you don't believe in rhythms and you don't like music, rhythms can transform a song from one style to another. And for me, it's having a good accountability partner in my wife, someone that can recognize the countenance of what I walk into the door with. She can sense it when I wake up, and somebody that will help examine the rhythms of what's going on to make sure that the schedule serves me. I don't serve the schedule.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, from
Can
there,
I just pause you for a second?
yeah,
A pastor of a growing, John said, healthy church just said, the schedule is your servant, not your master. And I think the
yeah,
lie we get sometimes, no, I need to squeeze, Craig Rochelle squeezes every minute out of every, that's Craig Rochelle.
yeah,
Who are you? And giving yourself permission to be who God made you to be, and not comparing yourself to this unicorn of a dude, whoever that dude is, I think
Right.
is liberating. So I just want to say thank you for sharing that you lead like God created you to lead. You don't lead with an inferiority complex because you found somebody who's better at it or whatever. Like that lie is extraordinarily harmful, I think, to a lot of leaders. Because I read your book, and now, I put 4 blueberries on my oatmeal instead of 3 like Craig does. It's like, you're not fat, it's 4 blueberries. You know what I mean? Eat cereal. I think people who are excellent at something write a book about it, and we all think we have to be that, and we
yeah,
don't. We're not going to be held
Right.
accountable to our resemblance to Craig Rochelle. We're going to be held accountable for our resemblance of what God called us to be, and our master. So I just wanted to stop you because I think that was a
yeah.
brilliant point.
Well,
Yeah.
I think we ministers can put ourselves into tailspins because we're so busy trying to wear Saul's armor when God called us to carry a sling and a staff. And one day David would use swords, and one day he would use shields. But in the season that God had him in, and the rhythms he needed to be in, his rhythms were stones and slings,
Right on.
and that's okay. And again, sometimes we're serving the rhythms instead of allowing them to serve us. And so, like the last chapter of my book is just literally, here's the things that I did. Like I started taking care of my body. I think that's a very, very simple thing. The physical, the mental, emotional, the spiritual, they're not separate parts of the body. They are all
Right.
part of the same body. And so when I started getting healthier, it wasn't about getting into a shape of body. I dropped over 100 pounds. That didn't necessarily like fix the depression, but I'm here to say that my depression, the better fit that I am in terms of how I'm eating, how I'm sleeping, how I'm taking care of the body, exercise, the depression actually comes in less severe and less frequent because you take care of the physical. The others
Wow.
do get healthier as well.
Yeah,
And
and
so,
especially Dave, especially the physiological piece. As
yes,
you take care of your body, it tends to have a very positive effect on your neurochemistry,
Yeah.
and so there is a tight
Wow.
relationship between being fit and a healthier neurochemistry. Now, it's not,
Mm.
and I'm not saying if you're fit, you'll never get depressed.
right.
That's not what I'm saying. But it has an amazing influence. As a matter of fact, and I know we got to hustle here because we're getting up against time, so I'll just share this real quick. Research has told us that exercise, cardio exercise, is every bit as effective as an antidepressant pill.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you shouldn't take your antidepressant
Right.
meds.
Right.
If you're
Right.
being prescribed, please hear me. But exercise and physical activity has this wonderful effect, not just on your physical body, but also on your brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Again, that's one of the reasons why, like when I gave up church softball, which helped save my soul and save my body, um, my wife knew I needed something. And so I actually got a boxing coach because that's always been a dream of mine. But he was honestly very verbally abusive with me and with others. And
Yeah.
so it wasn't doing what it was supposed to. And when my wife found the rock climbing gym, She bought me a 10-visit pass, and all of a sudden I came back full of life. There was
Right.
just finding that niche, finding that thing that feeds the
Mm.
soul, my friendships that are there now. I was actually at the gym when I found out that a good friend of mine who I dedicated the book to, who took his life because of depression. And I remember my son looking at me and says, "Dad, do we need to go?" I said, "No, this is actually where I need to be to start
Mm.
working through some of this stuff and start thinking through and start connecting the body, the soul, the
Mm.
physiological. It's the real thing."
Wow. Well, this has been awesome. I had no idea you lost 100 pounds, Dave. That's like a whole Backstreet Boy. I can't imagine the commitment it takes, to do that. Uh, wow. So, well, I think we should do this as we wrap up, guys. One is, John, somebody wants to talk about this. Why don't you tell us how to get a hold of you? And then, Dave, if you do the same, I think it'd be really helpful, because the next step, the courage it takes to take that step. Like,
Yeah.
please know people are waiting for you, praying for you, wanting you, cheering for you as you take that next step. John, how do we get a hold of you?
Well, convergecoach.com, and you click on the contact us link, and that will get you either to me or to one of our teammates who understands this subject.
Yeah.
And whoever's available will get to you first, and that's a free 30 minutes with us.
And Dave, your great book here, Speaking from the Shadows by Dave Barringer. How you spell the name? How else would we get a hold of you?
You can email me, Dave at kfirst.org, kfirst.org. I'm on all the socials. So I'm shameless. I'll be friends with everybody. So connect me, add me. Speakingfromtheshadows.com is just the website we utilize to promote the book. And from there, if you're local, you can get counselors through there. Books available on Barnes & Noble, Amazon, wherever you want to get your book.
Awesome.
But this has just been an honor. Someone told me a long time ago, you need to give somebody the permission to go second. And the way that you do that is you share your testimony, you share your story, and you give somebody the permission to go second.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, thank you both. I've learned so much in the last two podcasts. I have a lot of things to think about and digest as I finish the book. Yeah, I'm grateful for your transparency, both of you. I'm grateful for your work. I'm grateful that you didn't. Sometimes an alcoholic, it's done being an alcoholic. In my case, well, I never want to go around those people again. Versus saying the 12th step is going back to help somebody with their journey. So you're my heroes. So God bless you both, and God bless you, our listeners and watchers. Thanks for being a part of this. I'm going to assume that when you saw the title of it, maybe you clicked on it because you like the podcast every week. Maybe you clicked on it because Pastor Dave's a friend of yours, or maybe you clicked on it because you're looking for help. And this is a nice, simple, easy, non-committed way to begin that journey. I would just encourage you to take that next step. No reason to walk this path alone. So God bless you. We're praying for you, and keep going, man. We're cheering for you as you continue to lead from alignment.